Welcome to the show. My name is Dean, and it is so awesome to have so many people flooding into the room. We're flooding the zone here with people. That's what we're doing. And listen, I love to have people on, and everybody knows this. If you're part of any five stack that we do, or we feature people who are obviously smarter than me, people that have expertise in areas that I don't, like Congress, like AI, like Bigfoot, like like MAGA,
True.
like a guy living it, and it gives me incredible pleasure to introduce not just the Canadians, but the massive American audience that we seem to have here. We got about 2,000 people that are already on the thing today.
I bring the funk, man.
You
the
brought more than the funk. Ladies and gentlemen, former congressman, all around fucking good, patriotic American with a heart of gold and values and virtues for miles, and really grateful to call him my very good friend, Congressman Denver Riggleman, ladies and gentlemen, the third. The third.
The
I,
third. It's like this hillbilly royalty name, Denver Lee Riggleman the third.
I don't know. It's funny because I saw you on Twitter. It's you and I have a personal relationship, and so and when we started to kind of hang out, Greenland, Denmark, and part of the Save America movement tour, which was incredible. We'll get to that. And everybody was like, Congressman Denver Riggleman is coming, and I'm looking him up on social media. I'm like, this guy's like a unicorn. He doesn't really feed into conversations. He just ends them. But then I noticed that you had the third behind your name, and I'm like, oh, and he's big time too. He's ripping it up with the third, ladies and gentlemen.
I tell you what, when I got my inheritance of the double wide, I knew I had arrived.
And all the taxidermied animals. Is that?
Oh, I love it, right? When you get that ram head from the farm in Texas,
Yeah.
that they shoot, the exotic animal farms,
Yeah.
you made it. Right?
Well, and to be fair, the second had it, Denver Riggleman the second, and when it gets to the third, it becomes even more special. Now you're gonna have to give it to the fourth, providing there is a fourth.
I got three girls, man. I got a vasectomy pretty early after three girls, man. I
got a vasectomy after three boys. It was the number, not the sex of the individuals.
Yeah,
we
it's
all
the number.
Yeah. It's just because when you have two kids, they say like three kids is like, just have it's like having two kids. But that was a lie. And so I got conned into having three kids. It's like when you go from two kids to three kids, it's like having 40 kids. It's like having
incredible.
a daycare of children, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I would just push my 2-year-old into the snow when my third child and say, you need to survive on your own. And, that's what that's.
Well, I did the same thing. I let my then 4-year-old out into the wild. I'm like, this is Sparta. I'll see you in a year.
Sparta.
The first one, you're like, don't touch anything, don't bump into anything. By the third one, you're like, I'm going to put you outside with a stick and some beef jerky. You come back in 365 and we'll see what you're made of, kid. That's
hey, daughter,
how we do it.
Could you cut my steak? That's a nice steak knife. She's 3.
Anyway, dude, it is so good to have you.
Good to be here.
We're still waxing about the trip that we did to Denmark and Greenland, and you and I, that's where we became very good friends, and then we became roommates in Denmark. And what's amazing is the reception that you received in Denmark, very different than the one I received. We're going to get into a whole bunch of shit, but did it as a service member, as a veteran, a decorated veteran of the United States military. How did Greenland open your eyes? We're seeing that rhetoric sort of pop up again. JD Couchhumper, who's an Appalachian too, picking up the rhetoric, and now he's, we had Murkowski and some people go over there and say, hey, we're really sorry about all this, but, the Greenland rhetoric still exists. You were a hero to so many people there, knowing that you were an American congressman. How do you feel today about, some of that ongoing rhetoric, and how did that trip sort of change you a little bit, if you can?
I think the only way to figure out what's going on is to be on the ground. Dean, me and you had the ability to not only be in Nook, right? We got an ability to sail to a settlement, to talk to people in their homes. What a honor and a courtesy that was extended to me by the Greenland people. I still listen. The fact that you said hero, I don't feel that way at all. As you know, you alluded to it. I did feel like we had to overcome the hairy eyeball crew of all Greenlanders when we were walking through town. But some of the conversations, I think, when we were on camera, I think they held back a little bit. When I found out, Dean, I think you know that too, off
Yeah.
camera, I started to get a little bit ashamed because, they're saying, "Hey," I say a little bit, I was very ashamed because they're saying, "Hey, we think we separate you guys from Trump, but it's really hard not to be angry with Americans in general." And I see it because 77 million people voted for Donald Trump. So I think talking to the people on the ground, understanding they have 35,000 long rifles with 57,000 people, the fact that they're very good hunters, but also that they have this real independent streak, this real self determination streak that I think has been lost on a lot of Americans. And that's what I noticed while I was there.
Talk about that shame a little bit too, because you got there. I think the same day I did. We met at the airport in Reykjavik. Got down there. You were whisked off to a private dinner just with some, a couple. Some Peter and his wife and two people just to talk to you about, how they feel about America, and that's the great shame that America carries around is being defined by the regime and not the people in the United States of America in 250 years of sticking up for places like Greenland. But take me into that conversation and take the people watching into that conversation with Peter and his lovely wife, if you can.
I just got goosebumps when you said that because I saw an interview with Peter and I saw an interview with some others afterwards, and they said if these individuals in our home were Trump supporters, we don't know if we'd let them in. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Right?
Yeah.
That's where they're at. The second thing is, sitting in this beautiful home, overlooking, the fjords and the oceans, that just the incredible rock and ice and water. For them to say, "Hey, we've always thought of Americans," and this is true. What I'm about to tell people, the listeners here, they kept saying, "Where's our big brother?" That was the
Mhm.
term they kept using. We
Mhm.
always thought America would be our friend forever, but it was them the absolute look of betrayal, of fear, of the fact that we were there. Well, weren't we there, Dean, the night after the actual power outage where they thought Americans were attacking them because of
Yeah.
Venezuela, what they saw with Venezuela, the fact that they had calls increased to suicide hotlines, and the fact that the man I'm talking to's daughter was a world champion cross country skier, Peter, and his pride, but he goes, "We always wanted to be like the Americans. They were our
Mm.
example, and now we don't want them really anywhere near us." And I think having that conversation in somebody's home was something that I don't know if I will ever forget. And then for him to invite me back to his home and then to say, "Hey, Denver, maybe you need to do something again," which is one of the reasons I had decided I think I got to get back into politics was that discussion with Peter, to be honest with you, Dean.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that was a moment for you. You were moved by it. You came back to the clubhouse and kind of told us the story, with extreme reverence as an American misrepresented, held hostage by the Trump regime and your rapist felon president, Donald J. Trump. And I want to get to how you were moved to make a decision while we were there to get back into politics. And it's something that you haven't talked about widely. We're going to talk about it. Obviously, you told Times London reporter Louis Sykes about it, which he turned into a
He lost his.
he loved it, right? The kid, he was so incredible. He was so ecstatic that you were talking about getting back into politics. But when you talk about it, and just to give everybody a little backstory into Congressman Riggleman here, I got to know you over, the course of a 2 week, very intense sort of, trip where you and I would go out and we would meet people. We'd go to, Heidi's bar and we'd hold, the people would find out you're American and they would have two reactions. The first reaction was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" And even in the conversation we had with these two young ladies, and that which turned into a massive town hall in that pub,
Yeah.
where they literally said, "What if we meet an American tonight? Like, how do we react? How do we treat this American?" In walks Congressman Denver Riggleman
Hey,
with some slack-jawed Canadian going, "Hey guys, we're here to support you." But the relief on their faces and the gratefulness knowing and that line of sight into the United States of America, knowing that you represent 300 million, 280 to 300 million people who are being held hostage by Donald Trump was truly revelatory to those people. Can you talk about that just for a second? Because that shame also came with like these moments where people were hugging you and thanking you for showing up and saying, "Please help us, please stand with us, tell everybody in the United States." This is in Denmark and in Greenland, but really it came alive in Denmark. Talk about that did you feel like, oh my God, I got to go back and get into politics because these people need people like me and us, better America, to show up? Or is this just a spite thing where you're like, fuck Trump. I got the entire EU behind me at this point.
Well, I think people, when I tell the story, they need to understand we were both terribly jet lagged, right, Dean? I
Yes.
mean, we were exhausted, and we went
Yeah.
to Heidi's bar because we're keyed up, right? Because adrenaline's flowing through us a little bit. We were just in Greenland. We landed in Copenhagen. I'd never been in Copenhagen. We've been all around the world, Dean, but we got to see some things, didn't we, buddy?
Hmm. Yeah, we
So
did.
so everybody, Dean, you need to understand, Dean, he looks out the window and he goes, "There's plenty of bars. We got this," right? So it's what, midnight or so, man, right? So I'm like, "Shit, man, I'm with a Canadian. I don't know if I can keep up with this guy, you know?" So we walk out, right? We're going down the street and he goes, "There's a bar." And we saw all kinds of bars. What there was like the Miami bar, and you're like, "Nah, we're not doing that then." And
No.
then we're walking down, and I want to tell everybody about Dean. I don't know how he has like a radar for bars. He's like, "Oh, look." I'm like, "Where's
Canadian.
the I said, "Where's the name?" "Oh," he goes, "Right here, it's Heidi's." And it was like, remember it was like down in like a little basement area or something
Yeah.
like that, or
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
upstairs. And I'm looking for the entrance, and you're like, "That is the door." And I'm like, "Are we sure?" And you're like, "Yeah, just go in the door then." So we get in the door, we drink. I get my first numbers. It's called 1664 or whatever. I hadn't had that beer before. Dean gets a beer, and we're just sitting there chatting because it is midnight, I think, Dean. It's around
Easily.
11,
Yeah. Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
So we're chatting, and this incredible lady next to us leans over and she goes, "Hey," and almost perfect English. And what did she ask us? She said, "Where are you guys from?
Hmm.
I hear English." Like, "Oh shit!" And so Dean goes, "Hey, we're from Canada. This is great. I'm from Canada. It's great." And I'm like, "Where? How about you?" I'm like, "America."
It's funny because it's true.
So funny because it's true. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm from the U.S." Dean goes, "You know what's great about Denver? He's also a former congressman." At that point, I got a knife. I'm looking at Dean. So, so
That's
yeah,
also true.
so
Hey, everybody. We have an American congressman right here. I'm from Canada, but this is an American congressman.
yeah, he sucks.
No,
No,
no, no, no,
no,
no. But
no, that's a joke, that's a joke.
that was the opening line that brought the entire bar to your fucking bar stool,
It
right?
was we had a town hall,
Yep.
and we had a town hall for what did we get out of there, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning? Because me and you
Yep.
we were up to 5 AM talking about the incredible experience, what we had seen in Greenland. Um, you know, I don't okay, and I don't people are gonna think I'm naive, and maybe I am. But I did not realize, Dean, I think this is the thing I talked to you about. I didn't realize the actual impact America has on the entire world until you go to multiple countries and you hear the fear expressed from
Mm.
her when she goes, "I didn't," like you said, and everybody, I'm going back to Dean's setup here because I don't know if we could even actually get the effect of this, right? Factually, it would be really, really difficult. But she said, I don't know how I would talk to an American.
Mm.
And then we had to explain to her that we do have patriots in the U.S. that are anti-Trump, that are here to actually express their support for NATO. And then we had the longest political discussions in history. And as the night wore on, Dean and I got to absorb drunker and drunker people wanting to talk. So that's really what
Mm.
happened, and us having to actually, navigate that. But I think it came down to the fact that Dean is correct. Everyone is that it looks like everybody's like, Canada's cool. Canada is sort of the North Star for us now, the US, until Trump is gone. You guys are sort of lost to us. And we do, again, and she says, because we always thought of you guys as the example for
Mm.
democracy. And now we look at you guys as sort of a almost an authoritarian state with a crazy person in charge. And that is the baseline.
And that really, God, appreciate you being honest about that experience. We had several of those. It wasn't just Heidi's bar. Everywhere we went, we represented the people that we represent. I represented Canada and the fair-minded Canadian. I also was there standing shoulder to shoulder with you, representing the fair-minded American. And one of the things that they do understand after our conversations with them is that America is being held hostage. America's freedom and America's reputation, America the beautiful, is being held hostage by literally insane maggot cult losers. And, that was one of the reasons why you did not consider another run. One of the reasons why you've held a very low profile, when it comes to politics after leaving Congress a number of years ago. But it's also one of the reasons why, you were so effective on that trip is disillusion being what it is. You had a disillusioned group of Danish and Greenland people and a disillusioned American meeting together going, yeah, we're with you. We get it. And that was those were those beautiful moments, and it really culminated in the no words protest. And I'm going to get emotional talking about it because, again, two different experiences. The fact that the organizer Karsten, these solid veterans that served and died on behalf of the United States, triggering Article 5 in NATO and during 9/11, who were left behind in Afghanistan to do the dirty work of the United States while they moved over to Iraq so that they could extract what they needed to from that area of the world as well, seemed to be a real narrative that these Danish veterans wanted to talk about, along with the narrative of the complete disrespect of the effort that the Danish people and NATO allies sacrificed on behalf of the United States after 9/11. And when you were asked to march with these people, you held an American flag, a Danish flag, and you had this solemnness to you, along with other members of the American delegation from the Save America movement. We were all on assignment there to repair a relationship that Donald Trump continues to destroy. And I want you to kind of talk about how moving that was, because even myself walking behind you, you were at the front. You were a media darling because they couldn't believe that an American congressman, a veteran. No, you were, dude. And we pushed you to the front of that line because you represent this value and these virtues all Americans are so upset as they watch them disappear on the international stage. But talk a little bit about that no words protest from your perspective, how you felt, and the solemn duty, and as well, I mean, the yin and the yang of being an American marching to his own fucking embassy to protest his own government that day.
The way you put it, Dean, is is brilliant, really. You know, me being a veteran, I left 10 days after 9/11, as you know, and I mission planned the first bombing runs into Afghanistan with the B-1s, and the B-52s. And, to be with those individuals who stood with us was an honor of my life. That's the first thing. The second thing is you said I was at the front. Remember, I was walking with the 80-year-old flag bearer,
Mhm.
Danish veteran.
His name was Pierce, I believe.
Pears,
Pierce, yeah.
pears, yeah, and Pears, we're walking. I said, "Do you need me to help you with the flag?" "Eh." He goes, "That's my job, is
Hmm.
to carry this flag." And we started to talk, and he goes, "My English isn't so good. I learned it in the Congo." Now, that's a hell of a sentence anyway, by the way, Dean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't even know, but so we had this talk in this halting English, and he kept saying, he goes, "I knew my brothers. I knew you would come." Not me
Mm.
specifically, I think Americans. He goes, "I knew the Americans would still walk by my side." That was, and he had, some of those experiences, right? So I think that's where we're at right now, is that to have that discussion with an 80-year-old veteran who refused to give up the flag, who refused help. And he goes, "I'm not around for long." He goes, "I will die soon." And he goes, "I would hope that we and the Americans are friends again."
Mm.
And he said the same words. He goes, "We need our big brother." And that is the thing that I will stick with me. Buddy, that term big brother was probably stated a million times. Now, when I looked around me, there was a 4 or 5 people who refused to come up to me. They were giving me sort of the hairy eyeball, you
Mhm.
know? And I just went ahead and talked to them. And they said, "Who are you?" And I said, I told them who I was. And it was that time that I got, challenge coins, as you know, my friend. It
Mhm.
was at that time I started to get hugs and thanks and tears. I'm like, "What is happening?" And again, just like at Heidi's bar, I started to realize that Americans are looked at in a different way. We are sadly the world superpower that was supposed to be the love and light of democratic institutions. And instead, we're led by a madman. And not just a madman, but a narcissistic, self involved
Yeah.
person who surrounded him with sycophants and the mentally ill. And I think that's really what I found out is they are sick of sycophants and the mentally ill running the United States. And to have veterans come up to me and hug me and give me coins and to say, Denver, you're a true American. I never thought I'd have that reaction.
Mm, mm. You were visibly moved several times, and not just moved by the reaction of those people and the eye-opening experience of subjecting yourself to how they feel about you, knowing that relationship has been 200 years in the making, has been unequivocal for 2 centuries, that the Danish people, the American people fought and died together along with Canada. I had a very similar experience, and the reverence for that flag as well. But something that I watched happen was the lights going on with Danish veterans about how you are held hostage by this guy, your reputation, your service. And there was this apologetic attitude. You went from being a public enemy number one to, oh, fuck, we get it. We're so sorry. Talk about that grace from those people. Like they're like, how can we help you? That grace was otherworldly to me.
I felt like they were in a car accident and they wanted to help me get the right tourniquet for their leg.
Mm.
You know, and I'm sorry, is this lagging a little bit,
No,
Dean? No, is
nobody.
this good? Okay.
Yep.
But it felt like that, I didn't know how to react, and you saw it. You absolutely saw it. I listen, I'm not usually a lack for words, you know that, Dean. Me and you talked
Mm.
enough, right? But I think, what I saw was I didn't understand how these people are like, "We apologize for what's happening to you. We understand. We love that you're here. We hope that you're part of everything that we're doing in the future." And then, you know, I saw your discussion with was it Soren, Dean?
Mhm.
Your
Mhm.
discussion with Soren, and our discussion with Karsten, and I know this is an incredible interview and we're doing this, but I hope that you cover with your fans, with the people who watch you, your listeners, the people who go to you for what's happening. I hope they get to hear your story about Soren.
Mm.
Right. And when you were talking about the Canadian sacrifices, here I am on one side talking about defending America's behavior towards our incredible neighbors and allies, the Danes, and you're having discussions with those who love the Canadians and the tears and the emotions of the Canadian deaths
Mm.
beside the Danes. And it was just what a I wish people could have been there. I wish everybody who's listening to this could have been there and watched the dynamic of me and you having these separate discussions and and the flow and the ebb and flow of that and the incredible support. And I guess that was the other thing too is I was a little bit angry, Dean.
Mm.
I was very angry. I'm like, so really we America's lost their mantle. This pride, this we're the number one democracy. We're the one looking for global justice with Republican institutions, not Republican like Republicans. I'm sorry, like republics, but these federalist institutions where self determination is the number one thing. And I'm looking over at you, Dean, and I'm like, is it Canada now?
Mm.
And I think that's the thing, right? Is like, what have we done to our country with this president, these people who voted this person in? Is it Canada? Is it the EU? Is it NATO countries? Has America lost for decades or maybe forever its standing as sort of the whatever people say? People in the comments might say, "Well, you never had a moral compass. America sucked." I would beg to differ. We always had this idea, right, that we could be maybe a moral standing and help people with our wealth and riches and military. But on the other hand, then you start to think I was naive.
Mm.
I was arrogant in that belief, and maybe it's time for me to step back and reevaluate how I was trained in the military, what I thought of myself as an American. And it's not just an anger exercise, it's a humility exercise. And
Mm.
I think that's what I got from being with you in that tent right before we started that incredible march.
Mm. Yeah, so well said, Den. There's a reason why you are one of America's great communicators, and you are, and there's a reason why you were so respected there, and there's a reason that you were on that trip. I'm a firm believer in fate, and we make fate what it is. You represented on that trip, and the rest of the team from the Save America movement, including Ken Harbaugh, including Malcolm Nance, who came with us on that trip, including Mary Corcoran from Save America. You represented everything that Canadians and the Danish went to war for. You represent that humility. You represent that love of democracy. You represent this big brother that and the attitude of a big brother that under no and in no uncertain terms would ever be taken advantage of as long as America had your back. And watching that abatement has been incredible, but it's also incredible in so many terrible ways. And you talk about the reputation. Will it be generational damage? I believe it will. But having said that, I'm also watching people like you wake up to the duty that you have to serve again. And I want to talk about that because you just elected a governor, an incredible governor in Virginia. You are in Virginia. You were a congressman for 2 years. You took your leave, and you took your leave based on values and virtues that matter to the American that feels held hostage. But when we were there, you felt the call. You felt the call to go and serve again. And I want to talk about that because if I know Denver Riggleman as I know him, my fucking God, if we could clone Denver Riggleman and have him run in every single state in the United States of America, the world would be a much better place for all of us. But talk about that poll and talk about the decision that you think you've made.
God, Dean, I'm glad these easy questions, man. Um,
I just butter the track for you, dude. All you got to
uh,
do is go down. You just got to slide down the track. That's all you got to do.
I don't think, after the J6 committee, I don't know if people know that I was also the senior technical advisor on the January 6th committee. Wrote a book about it, which was sort of nuts, right? That sort of did
Breach.
really
It's a
well. The
great
breach.
fucking book, by the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the breach. And so, and God, I was the only one to write about the data, but I got done with that in 23 and I'm thinking, I'm done with this noise, right? Maybe I can do better, starting my AI companies, as you know now. Maybe I can help people with technology. That's sort of my background and my military experience and my intelligence experience. Maybe that's where I need to go now. Maybe I need to accrue, get back into the business world, run my distilleries with my wife, right? Make our whiskey and build tech and go after terrorists again, right? Which was sort of where I was born.
Mhm.
I was born in it. So I figured that's what I should do. I'm not a narcissist or a sociopath, so it makes it really hard for me to wanna run again. I'd almost rather self-immolate. Um,
That's one of the worst ways to go, dude. You can pick something
right.
else.
It would be better. It'd
Yeah.
be better than going back into Congress or something like that, I'll be honest, is to set myself on fire in front of a Chuck E. Cheese, and just say, "I've had enough."
I
Um
watched Pam Bondi do it in the oversight hearing the other day. That was fun.
Protecting Epstein, man. I mean, we got a pedocracy, right? A
Yeah.
pedocracy going on here.
Yeah.
So, and I find it absolutely horrific, right, that we would have anybody voting. But here's the issue with me running again. I am I a coward if I don't? Dean, I know we've had this discussion, and now people get to hear sort of the most personal and awful things, right, that you
Mm.
think of. Do I have the guts to take this kind of abuse again? I went through disinformation. I was called a tool of the Antichrist by the far right. By the far left, I was called a Bigfoot eroticist. So, I've had disinformation. It was worse on the far right, I won't lie. Tool the Antichrist might be worse than a Bigfoot eroticist. But,
I don't know, dude. I don't know. The
yeah,
Bigfoot thing was and we'll get into it. The Bigfoot thing was my favorite. Like
uh,
that of my favorite, like op ever run on a MAGA congressman or someone who represented the GOP at any point in time in the last 12 years. The big accusing you of being a Bigfoot porn guy might have been
I
my favorite.
well, the thing is, I wrote a book called Bigfoot is Complicated, and that book was about disinformation and cult behavior. And
Sure.
and my Democratic opponent, Leslie Coburn, her daughter was Olivia Wilde. I don't know if people remember this, right? I was national. I was on Saturday Night Live, man, on Lies.
Yeah, Jason Sudeikis went after you. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, he was dating her at the time, and I guess my guess is that Jason's idea got there, or because I don't know how else Saturday Night Live would have picked that up. But I was number one global on Twitter, and I was really big on Google Images. So anyway, um, But the fact was is that disinformation being used against me on a book about disinformation and something so ludicrous that people believed, really, even though I got elected, it absolutely floored me how many stupid people there are in the United States.
Yeah.
The inability to critical think or to make these judgments beforehand. Well, you think that's bad. Wait till you get to the far right and you're accused of being a secret Democrat or a tool of the Antichrist, or I'm trying to change the sexual orientation of children. As you know, I got kicked out of the actual Republican Party because I officiated a same sex wedding. So then I was called the tool of the Antichrist. I was called satanic because I had actually done that wedding. So now I have the far right and the far left have come up with these bizarre things. But the way that I attack disinformation is with humor and relaxed facts. And it's helped me to gain this sort of following. People know I will never lie to them. The issue, though, is, buddy, if I run for office again, is I'm going to absorb attacks from the far right and the far left based on the fact that I am a no kidding million-pound shit hammer of data. That is really how I'm wired. And do I have the energy to accept those attacks to my family? As you know, the thousands of death threats, the one attempt on me, am I ready for this again? And there's a part of me that thinks maybe I'm not. Am I up to the task in this bizarre environment? I'm not crazy, which puts me at a real disadvantage for running in either party, but more so on the far right. It's not even a whataboutism thing, right? Is how do I get through even a primary system on both sides? How do I do this? What does that look like if I run for Congress or I run for governor in 29, which is where my eye is right now?
Mhm.
And then I thought, what a coward.
Mm.
What you know, do I just do it? But then my wife and kids, right? They're like, "Well, Dad, you do put us at risk, but we love what you're trying to do."
Mm.
So when Trump got elected this time, my wife had been sort of pushing back against me on running to say, it hurts your health. Look what it did. I understand you want to serve, but maybe it's time to, you've been in the military, you started these companies for the military, you've been on the J6 committee, you were a congressman. I mean, when does it end? You're 55, right? You're old as dirt, right? You're ass dragging around. You got an AARP card and you get the Shoney's special discount for the breakfast buffet every morning now, right? So,
Mhm.
what are you going to do here? But it comes down to this, Dean. I got enough energy. I got a 1 or 2 left in me, right? And if not me, if not the people who hate it, who literally hate it, it's not even lip service. You know me. You know I hate it. And everybody knows it. They're like, Denver hates politics. He hates the people that are around it. He can't stand the consultant class. He can't stand the money. He can't stand that there's the corporate interests, the stuff that you have to deal with, the fact that I have to go raise money, the fact that I have to, you almost in some ways you have to lick some boots depending on which way you choose.
Mm.
But you know what? Somebody's got to do it. And maybe I'm in that unique position with being a former congressman, former J6 tech advisor, former military officer, veteran, CEO of multiple tech companies, fairly successful, and fuck, I make whiskey. So let's go, right? Let me go swing the hammer. Let me drag a freaking axe into a bar fight
Yeah.
and let's see what we can do. And do I have the guts again? It goes back to, can I do it again? I don't know, but I'm gonna try, and if I lose, I lose, but at least I'll lose with my integrity intact always. But then again, what am I willing to compromise to get back into this game? Am I willing to compromise? And I think as I get older, that's the hardest question I have to ask is I'm not looking for power. I've done crazy stuff. I've had a hell of a life, but maybe the non-narcissistic, non-sociopathic, having a bit of integrity, not willing to compromise every principled person should run again.
Mm. 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 Well, you know, can you get other people to think that way? And it's interesting you bring up your family's safety, your mental capacity, emotional capacity, knowing what you have already been through, right? And not a lot of people understand that when you're a member of the GOP, or if you have been jettisoned from MAGA because you're not up with the bullshit, you're not okay with child rape, you're not okay with self dealing, you're not okay with enrichment, you're not okay with someone taking a shit on the emoluments clause, you're not okay with the beating and the execution of your own citizens. You're not okay with those things. And it feels like there's a tidal wave, watching Tom Holman say, "Hey, we're out of Minneapolis. We won. Peace out." And watching the quiet individuals involved in this administration who were much louder when they had ICE agents beating other citizens, who were much louder when they were talking about expansion in imperial expansion into Greenland and Canada. They seem to have gotten quieter now, but what a lot of people don't understand is it's not the public facing stuff. It's the private shit that people like you go through when it comes to threats to your family, when it comes to the MAGA machine and the trolls coming after you. You have had an attempt on your life prior to actually deciding that you were going to possibly get back into the game. This is prior to obviously the last 4 or 5 years during the Biden administration. But can you kind of let us in on that personal stress that each one of you go through when you're not in the big MAGA pedo protecting tent? Because what you don't realize is the public threats pale in comparison to the private shit.
Yeah, I keep an email, Dean, of when they threatened to rape my wife and children. I keep it. And if I ever found that individual, I'd be in jail. The other thing too is that the weirdness of what they did to my vehicle. I mean, how disrespectful to just take the lug nuts off. Couldn't you like shot at me with a bazooka or something? Jesus. But I think what it comes down to is that when all this stuff is happening and you're looking at your family, you're like, how am I? What arrogance for me to run and put my kids and wife and grandkids at risk. The arrogance that you would think that you can make a difference. I mean, how dare me? Right? That is my thought pattern. Like, who the F are you to think you can make a difference when it's almost like this tidal wave of propaganda, disinformation? Your summary, Dean, is exactly right. It was well done, right? To be able to put that stack of stuff into a sort of this understandable matrix of the decision tree I have to go through.
Mhm.
And that's the issue, right, Dean, is that how dare me? How dare me put my friends at risk and my family and my lovely little grandkids? I know I'm going to be doxxed. I know it's going to happen again, right? And my initial thing with my background, my initial behavior is to confront with everything I got, right? Drag my Borelli shotgun through the fucking streets and say, "Come on." Right? That's the military in me.
Mhm.
The grace, the statesman portion is completely different. It's if everybody's afraid, if everybody is worried about the sacrifices they have to make for service, it's the very people who view politics as a career path and an ability to feed their own sociopathic tendencies, right? And their own foibles, right? Their own weaknesses, these critical moral deficiencies that they somehow have to make up with power and the first reservations at restaurants in Washington, D.C. That's who I'm fighting. Now, it's not everybody. It's stupid. There's no way it's everybody. But I will tell you, it's greater than 50% of the people who are running for office couldn't hold a job anywhere else. They're incapable, right? Because they're insane, right? They have a mental switch that hasn't quite completely matured from birth, right? It's like somebody hit them really hard when they were babies in the soft spot before actually, tightened up, right? So this is the stuff that I'm trying to actually compromise with my own self every day. Because what if something were to happen to my family? How would I feel then, Dean? If you want to know the personal stuff, right? It's that if something were to happen to my family, freaking all bets are off, right? And
Mm.
and so that's the issue that I have. I don't know if I can get any more personal. I hope this is probably be played back as an attack ad, and I don't give a shit, right? That Denver was never 100% sure about running. Well, who sane would be, Dean?
Mm.
What sane person wants to jump in this morass of weirdos and sycophants? Who wants to serve next to Nancy Mace, right? Who wants to do that? And I'm not being funny. I'm not even kidding. Who wants to do that, right? And that who wants to serve under an administration of Donald Trump? What person would take an appointment in this administration? What soulless crap person would do that? And that's the thing that I fight with every day, right? And by the way, if people ever want to go on the other side and talk about some of the people I don't like, that's great. But guess what? Guess what? We have two parties. And right now, you could talk about crazies on the left, but they represent more of the sane, liberty loving, constitutional stuff than the right. It's just a fact right now.
Yep.
And that's where we're at. So I have this bizarre place that I'm in. I've made so much enemies from people that love disinformation, propaganda, and hate. And how dare me think that I can make a difference? But then on the flip side, I think maybe the people who do hate it need to make a difference. God, boy, did I just talk myself into now I just want to go get a beer and a whiskey and
You
run
want to
through
go
the
back to Heidi's bar?
go back to
Yeah.
Heidi's bar, right? So there you go.
Well, listen, as I can't thank you enough for sharing, some of the more personal aspects of the decision that you have to make if you want to run for office again. There's a point where public office and public service, and I happen to believe it, even as much as someone who would never run for fucking public office, I have to believe that you feel a duty and a necessary duty to the republic, but for different reasons than you did prior when you became a congressman in 2016, right? Like, I think that it's a very different set of circumstances because you talk about the two parties, but we're literally and I watch Pam Bondi, and I want your thoughts on it. You're either supporting a party that protects pedophiles and protects the oligarchy, but really a pedophile protection network, or you're not. That's kind of where we're down to. We're down to not Republicans and Democrats. We're watching people from the GOP, like, you call them heroes, but these are people that are literally standing up to this threat that is making you think twice about running. Can you imagine the heat that Thomas Massey, Tom Bacon, people in the Republican Party that have come over to the other side going, we want these Epstein files. But when you watch what Pam Bondi did on the stand the other day, and you see Tulsi Gabbard doing his dirty work in Fulton County, knowing that you were part of the J6 committee, there's got to be a little less hope in that beautiful brain of yours that you can make a difference, unless that's completely finished, unless MAGA is done. But I want to talk about that because obviously you're not going to run as a Republican if you do run, right? I mean,
No.
it's not possible, right?
No, right? I'm not a big fan of a party that really likes to rally around the child rapist lobby. I mean, that's not really my thing, right? And I think also, has anybody, Dean, self-identified with more moral deficiencies than Pam Bondi during that testimony?
What did you think of that?
I don't know if we have the words for somebody that critically damaged as a human being.
Mm.
And I think anybody who can't turn around and look at victims of child rape and exploitation in a level that it's hard for any of us to imagine and to ignore, to smirk, to smile, to utilize the fact that the stock market was over 50,000 as an argument during a literally talking about protecting a child rapist. I don't know if we've ever seen in the history of the United States a more palpably ignorant. I don't use the word evil often, but stupidity and evil are interchangeable. And I've always said stupidity is terminal. And I
Mm.
and I think with MAGA, I think you're seeing the fact that stupid and going against their own base and the own conspiratorial theories like QAnon, the fact that they already have a rabid base of bizarre belief system people, and they're playing into it by protecting a child predator like Epstein in
Mm.
a way that was absolutely obvious yesterday. I think we are seeing cracks in MAGA. I think we're seeing the fact that stupidity sometimes eats itself. And I think that's what you're seeing. I think you see crazy eating its own tail right now. And I think Pam Bondi was representative of that insanity, but also the moral decay of the GOP as it's been seen since 2015.
Mm. Well said. Moral decay. There is no morality in the GOP. I made this point the other day, and your side hustle, which is your main hustle, is a data and AI expert. That was your job with the J6 committee. That is what you do for a profession. You understand how to collect data. You understand, the analytics behind, conversations that we're having right now, and the analytics it comes to, and the data when it comes to 3.5, let's include the other two dumps that were not just minimal, they were brutal. 3.8 million files when we know we're supposed to get 10.5 million files. And unredacted in the 3.5 million files, Donald Trump's name appears 1 million times, redacted 950,000 fucking times, 950,000 times. And then now let's cross-reference that data with emails and correspondence that span 30 years that put Donald Trump at not just at the scene of the crime, but directly as the centrifuge of what the Epstein files tried to accomplish, which is how do we have a honeypot? How do we allow rich elite people to rape children, to traffic children, maybe murder children? Ted Lieu is on one case that is so spectacularly horrific. It needs an entire podcast just to justify the conversation. But I find it analytically impossible over the course of 40 years. You can maybe fill me in as to whether or not it's possible. The redactions, 950,000, a million different mentions from hundreds and hundreds of different witnesses, to not just assume at this point that, according to data and analytics cross-referenced over a 4-decade period, that Donald Trump is a pedophile protecting other pedophiles. You being involved in that mess prior to us getting here now, as a congressman, do you look back on that and go, "Oh my God, yeah, of course," or do you go, "Of course, this was always the case, and by the way, the data and the analytics, it's impossible to fudge this. Donald Trump's a pedophile."
Yeah, I mean, they used an auto redact tool, right? They just do a name search, right? You're using a program that does auto redactions, and I sort of know how this stuff works, which makes me very, very terrifying to far right trolls, even trolls on this Substack Live, right?
Oh yeah,
Because
I just blocked him. Some dude named Ren Media that's coming after you and me. He's finished, so don't worry about it.
well, no, I love these guys, right? Because their ignorance is so self-identifiable to everybody else, right? This is a person that, has no moral compass, spineless, cynical, makes money on clicks and mining the stupid. I mean, that's what they do. But I think when you're looking at analytics, like the J6 committee, you talked about, and God, we would have, and sadly, only have about 5 minutes, Dean, and I apologize.
Yeah, no, no, yeah,
But sadly, I want to do a whole nother thing on how they would steal an election through process, not through technology. I would love to have that discussion with you one time,
yeah.
right? Especially with the executive orders and how they would manipulate it. I am never would push anything on here, but if please, you can rent the book or borrow it from somebody. But in The Breach, if you read Chapter 11, Executive Disorder, it's exactly what Tulsi Gabbard did. They had already done it during the 2021 elections. The Republicans had actually tried to do that exact playbook, what Tulsi Gabbard did in Fulton County. And so I sort of called it, but it's just data-based. It's not that I'm a prophet, right? I'm not getting weird voices in my head. That's just from
No,
data.
you're just willing to do the work and you know how to do it, right?
Yeah, there's work there, right? So when you're
Yeah.
talking about Donald Trump, they had to do that auto redaction tool because I think if you were to ingest all that data, Dean, and put it into a link map, and then you do follow the money principles and investigations, I think you would see you could probably line up President Trump where he was based on geolocations with financial flows. And at that point, he's cooked, but that will never happen. They will never allow all the data to go to somebody like me or people that are as good as me or better. There's a lot of really good investigative data individuals and companies out there that can do this work. To say I'm the only one would be lying, but I'm just pretty good at it, and my team is much better, right?
Mm.
I'm an old boss now. I just tell them what to do, and they do it, and they're great. But I think that's where we're at. I think that the investigation, if they actually went all in, I think it'd be so damaging. I don't know what we would do. Here's the other thing. People talk about conspiracy theories. The fact is that there's a difference between conspiracy theories and criminal conspiracies. And I want people to keep that in their minds, right? A criminal conspiracy with Epstein and money flows for children is different from conspiracy theories like deep state, which globalist, which is actually just a code word for the Jews, are actually drinking the blood of children and making adrenochrome. That is ridiculous. It's ludicrous on a level. It's anti-Semitic and stupid. But to have a criminal conspiracy of one specific individual who's peddling girls to leaders with money, that's a criminal conspiracy. That's different. That's facts-based and data-based. So that's why right now I would love to have that data, Dean. It would be really, really fantastic if I got my hands on unredacted data for all the Epstein files. I think that would scare the shit out of about everybody. That's not going to happen. But again, I think that's why I have to make that decision between technical service and building companies that can do it, or getting into public service and leveraging what I know now, right, to serve the public in a way that at least they know I tell the truth. They might hate my guts. They might hate some of the votes that I might take. They might hate it if I'm a governor or something like that, but they're like, at least the guy tells the truth and he's facts-based. That's really what it comes down to. Can you have a facts-based policy discussion without going into, hey, I just got told by a weird spirit that I should go down this route, right? That's
I've just heard a voice in my head, which is, you're touching on something totally different. That's for our next Fridays with Denver, and I
I
know
would do
you.
every Friday with you, Dean.
Well, done. ten
I would do
o'clock
every Friday.
Fridays.
Oh my
That's
god,
us.
I would love that because listen, I watched you with everybody else, and I know we're here at the end, and I'm breaking my own time rule here because I do have a meeting at 11, but I love you. The issue is this: I've watched you with multiple people, and I feel like you're taking sort of this consortium of individuals and trying to build this layered, data-based, moral-based sort of team to say, here's what's happening, and you can't be afraid to say what's happening, what's in front of your eyes, and it's backed by verifiable facts and data. And I think that's, like the Save America movement inviting us. We were very fortunate. I was
Mhm.
very fortunate to get that invite. But Dean, what you're doing out there in the ecosystem right now is very much needed because you're talking to Lev Parnas or Zeb or talking to people like me. And there's times where, me, Lev, all the people might even differ on some of the things that are happening, but you're bringing all these people who are trying to do the right thing regardless, right, of where we're at. Whoops. Good, I thought I had my stuff turned off, but you're bringing this incredible ecosystem together, and I'm absolutely honored, that you would want to talk to me. It's great.
Nah, dude, I'm honored you'd want to be here. I got a chance to get to know you as a human being before I had any clue as to who you were and the cut of your jib. And I can tell everybody that if we got 100 Denver Rigglemans, the world would be a much more beautiful place that had the confidence and the virtues and the values that Denver Riggleman does. It's merit based, it's the truth, it's fact based. It is for the people, by the people, not for Denver and his friends. And that's what set you apart. And that's what led to your unceremonious removal from the GOP, which should be a fucking badge of honor. And speaking of which, I carry this around me every day. This is a challenge coin that you gave me. This has not left my pocket. This is from Congressman Denver Riggleman. It is about what is important and who is important. And if you're lucky enough to get one of these from this man who represents real manhood in the United States of America, hold on to it because it means much more than just coming from a congressman. It came from someone that has the values and the virtues that America should embrace. And I hope I'm going to fucking smoke you out, bro. You're going to run for office somehow and you're going to be part of that healing of America. And we're going to do this Denver Fridays. We're going to try and do this every Friday. And the next one will be Bangarang. We'll get into process and what you know about data, the Epstein files, and of course the illegitimate election. But I got your six, bro.
Oh, and I got yours, my friend. And thanks for having me. And my heart is full, brother. Thank you, and
Yeah.
thanks for everybody for even tuning in. I love you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, appreciate you. Love you. We'll talk to you soon,
Yeah, my
pal.
brother.
You
See you,
got
buddy.
it. Yeah,
Bye.
no problem. There's Denver Riggleman, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to take his leave from us and take off today. I need everybody to hammer that Chiron at the top. Give Riggs a follow. There are some superstars whose values are intact despite having thousands of death threats, attempts on their lives coming from politics because Donald Trump wants to instill fear in people like Denver Riggleman because he knows how fucking dangerous Denver Riggleman can be to piercing the veil of the sim that Donald Trump wants everybody in the United States to live under. And that sim is that he's some kind of fucking strong man, don't got on his bad side. He's not a rapist. He is a rapist. He has no good side. He is a pedophile protecting a party of other pedophiles. He is trying to steal the elections. And it was interesting because Spencer Hakimian, who's a great follow on Twitter, he's an economist, he's a trader, but more importantly, he's got pretty good values. Put out a tweet today, and I followed it up, and it is true that Donald Trump is secretly fucking panicking that he's going to be removed from office during his second term. Secretly panicking. And it's people like Denver, people like Congresswoman Stansbury, Nancy fucking Mace, let's throw her name in the mix, Thomas Massey, Don Bacon, every single person that has said, doesn't matter what's in it for us or our party. We should probably get to the bottom of why Donald Trump and all his friends took billions of dollars from Russia and took part in a scheme that has destroyed the lives of children for 40 years as part of an ongoing horrific pedophile sex trafficking ring. I'm on their side. I said this before, zero fucking tolerance. There's two parties in the United States of America now. There's two parties. You're either on the pedophile party, trying to keep the fences out for all the pedophiles so they can run around and do their thing in the park of pedophilia, or you're on the fuck those guys, let's napalm the entire park party. I don't think you're running for office against that without knowing before you run for office that you're either going to run for office for the pedophiles or the non-pedophiles. You're going to run for office for people that protect women and children and the innocence of children and the innocence of women and want this to fucking end and don't care who gets taken to the woodshed for it. Doesn't matter if they're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, black, white. Don't care. Woman, man, television giraffe. See, I just nailed Trump's cognitive exam. Who, by the way, I don't know if anybody has watched Donald Trump over the past 2 weeks. Yesterday, he literally had a transient ischemic attack, a TIA, a stroke, and then kicked everybody out of a press briefing because he wasn't well. Then he fell asleep halfway through it again. So add, extreme dementia and everything else to everything else. That is running the United States of America right now. It's easy for me to talk about from my perch in Canada. But Denver's right. Nothing in the past matters. What matters is now. All time is owned by death. Doesn't matter. All that past time is owned by death. What are you willing to do now? Are you willing to accept the challenge to support people like Congressman Riggleman? Are you willing to support the challenge to do the right thing for the right reason's sake? Are you willing to ignore all the noise? Not get into clickbait wars with people like Ren Media here, who's sitting in our chat. I blocked him. It'll be gone in a minute. Trying to explain away why he doesn't like this conversation. And the only reason why he doesn't like this conversation is that he's probably a bot or a troll sent by Donald Trump and the Trump regime and the digital magicians that are associated with the axis of evil. We have that up here in Canada too, just to make everybody think that, oh, no, you guys are losers. Well, call me a loser all you want. Doesn't matter to me. Not a fan of pedophilia. I like democracy. I'd like America back as Canada's best friend. I'd like the pedophile and the rapists that are currently occupying the Oval Office as a international criminal enterprise that have currently stolen the United States, holding 300 million people hostage, including the rest of the free world. Not Canada, though. We don't give a fuck. I'm here for that. So call us whatever you like. Doesn't matter to me. But what you will be calling us, provided Donald Trump doesn't try to start some kind of civil war, institute some other kind of trigger for the insurrection, all of it, the militarization, provided that does not, and watching Tom Homan walk out of Minnesota yesterday was a good day for everybody too. Provided that doesn't happen, listen, I think the most important thing here is to know that you're winning. I say this from time to time, but it's true. Pam Bondi self-immolated. I love that word. I'm going to use it more often, that phrase. Donald Trump is, statistically, it is impossible to not just assume at this point he is a raging pedophile who raped and murdered children and women for 40 years. It's impossible. It's not possible. The data would say it is an impossibility. So you got to decide if you're okay with that. Oh, and by the way, he's ruined your economy. Canada lapped him. The Gordie Howe Bridge is opening. He's threatening Canada now because all the trade deals are done. Canada showed it all up, and you're going to get fucking leftovers, Donald Trump. And he's threatening to fucking go into Venezuela again. And it's all a fucking lie. It's all a scam. It's a sim run by a pedophile to protect other pedophiles. And let me tell you something. If and when the top comes off this and people like Denver Riggleman are in office and they get access to things like the unredacted Epstein files, like fucking all of them. And listen, Mag, I'm talking to you too. You want the same thing. None of us on this side of the equation, the accountability side of the equation, the democracy side of the equation that protects children and women, that party, don't care about your conservative or liberal leanings. That party of fucking humanity, none of those people are going to take their foot off the gas post 2026. Nobody. So I guess it comes down to this. You're going to have to decide. Not a lot of people on the fence that are watching this. Everybody here is basically here for the same reasons that you agree. You agree. Pedophilia is bad. Democracy good. Truth good. Lies bad. Stealing from taxpayers bad. Covering up sex trafficking rings bad. Lying to the American people bad. That's why you're here. You agree with those things. But I guess some of the other people are going to have to start asking themselves this question. Do you want to be known as a pedophile for the rest of your life? The pedophile party. Canada has one too, the Conservative Party of Canada, the Maple MAGAs. That's the question they're going to have to start asking themselves. There is no tolerance. There's no fucking daylight between anybody that supports Donald Trump, officially or unofficially. Anybody who votes for him, anybody who wears the fucking hat. My assumption is you can just take the embroidering off of the Make America Great Again bullshit on your stupid red trucker hack and put in, I love pedophilia. We should start selling those fucking hats on the Trump store. Maybe I'll sell them from Canada into the United States. A MAGA hat. Make America a pedophilia nation again. It's what he wants. And it's kind of like when you're drunk, you want everybody around you to be drunk. When you're a pedophile, you surround yourself with other pedophiles. Like, ooh, you too? Oh, thank God. Yeah. Well, you got lots of money. I got lots of money. Let's try and keep everybody away from all our pedophilia. It's not going to work. You know that Sultan, the co-conspirator, the guy in charge of DP World, this container company is a Sultan, was in the Epstein files. He's just been removed from his position. Lord Mendelsohn, several other people are now under investigation, if not arrested, in England. The Norwegian royal family and a Norwegian former politician was arrested yesterday. There are 15 investigations belonging to countries, not people in those countries. 15 countries have started investigations into the Epstein files and the trafficking of their own citizens and any other citizens that are involved. Canada is next. You're going to have to decide what side you're on. Come over here. It's better over here. The kids will thank you. The women will thank you. Democracy will thank you. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. We've got about 5,000 people that are currently watching, and I am always shocked and amazed that I get welcomed into your homes and onto your phones no matter where you are. And obviously, you know, the fact that we tried desperately to advocate for the right thing with facts, fact-based information is important in a post-truth society, and we know that just by the analytics. So thank you. I would ask that you just do me a couple things if you can. If you could share this with as many people as humanly possible, including that MAGA member in your life or that family member, and let them know, hey, your donation's going to pedophiles. You know what that means? You're an accessory after the fact of pedophilia, which means you're a pedophile. That's a good idea today. And more importantly, if you could share this and subscribe. You know, subscribers drive this content to the top of the algorithm. Unfortunately, paid subscribers do too. So we've done our very best to make this as inexpensive to give you as much access to this kind of content as humanly possible. And we don't paywall. I'm a very bad entrepreneur, and I don't paywall because I want everybody to have access to it. So, you know, the appreciation that you show us with paid subscriptions mean the world to us. Yes, we do exclusive content for paid subscribers, but we do that in different ways, including giving you access to the chat. That's the way you get access to the chat here. And we've got 30% off for the rest of the month on annual memberships. That won't change. And I think our monthly is like $8. It's nothing. And if you want to become a founding member, thank you. You never, ever pay again. But you get unlimited access for the rest of your life, and you can lock in that annual price. But paid subscribers, weekly, monthly, founding members, Thank you. Thank you for being part of this community and part of the resistance. Let's continue to move forward together. Let's continue to make sure that this message and these messages and people like Denver are shoved to the top of every single algorithm that we can find, because these are people that we need to hear more from. They care about the United States of America. They care about the relationships that they've had and curated for the last 200 years, 250 years. They care, as do they. And I will side with Denver and sign off with, we want our big brother back too, Denver. So let's all get busy trying to help with that. Thanks for being part of the show. Don't forget, you can get everything at deanblundell.substack.com. Daily Dean newsletters coming out. And I'll be back at 3 o'clock with the 5-stack with my friend Zev Shalev. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for being part of the show. We'll talk to you soon. 3 o'clock, as a matter of fact.